Hey y'all, what's up? It's your boy Evan here. Today I'm going to show you guys how to add anatomy and shading to Daredevil. If you want to know how to draw his head and body, then click here. Now, let's get started. We're going to have a strong light source coming from behind him. And when you have a light source coming from behind your figure or your character, you want to put this core shadow in the front, in the very front. But you also want to leave the outer edges or the outer rim of the body in light. So we're going to have the front of his face in deep shadow, and we're going to add some shading down here under his eyes, and then above we're going to put this kind of like half-tone marks, and then continue that down below his eye level around here. And this is where it gets really into like deeper shading, because you have his brow ridge coming over his eyes. So his eyes are even more recessed in his head. And now I want to go ahead and erase out some spots to put a few like highlights, like there's something in front of him that's reflecting light back on his face. And you can use your artistic license to kind of get away with wherever you put those highlights. But I like to put them around the eyes because it helps accentuate or makes the eyes look more dramatic, and it brings attention to them when you have the whiteout kind of like marks right next to his eyes, and you have that contrast of the deep shadow. I'm going to kind of redo his mouth here a little bit. Not quite happy with it. I might come back and retackle this later. That looks better. Okay, this looks better. Having this outside, part that's away from us have a little bit more at an up and down angle, as opposed to as horizontal as it was before. So I want to put a shadow here underneath his mouth and just above his chin, and then put one just underneath the bottom part of his chin. And you want to put a shadow to indicate his upper lip, and then we're going to put a drop shadow down here on his nose, and just kind of just tweak it and add in more wherever you see fit on the mask. Just be sure that the shading on his mask is darker than the shading that will be on his face. So for his muscles, we're going to start with his shoulder, his deltoid muscle. You want to put in the 3 muscle segments that represent the shoulder deltoid muscle. Then we have the brachialis, the tiny one next to his bicep. And then coming down for his forearm, and you don't need a lot of detail, but for his forearm, we're going to add this curved line to represent his glove that he wears. Let me move the drawing up a little so you can see more. And drawing the glove in a rounded shape, that gives the reader the illusion that his muscle has that roundness to it. And now we're going to just continue drawing the arm on top of the basic shapes that we drew earlier. Now for his wrist area, you want to just go in, put in this maybe like W kind of curved shape, and it's to quickly represent the wrinkles that are on his wrist and in the glove area. Now moving on to his knuckles, we want to go ahead and draw these diamond shaped metal parts in his glove just for design purposes, but make sure that they fit along these curved guidelines that we drew earlier. You want to make sure that whatever set of knuckles that you're drawing, that they all rest on the same guidelines. A lot of amateur artists make the mistake of drawing the fingers as these separate individual things. They are separate, but they still rest and they have a relationship. And if you can figure out that relationship with them all being on the same guideline, then it'll make your drawings that much more believable and based in reality. Now for his fingers, we're going to put some kind of like extra design element to him. I want to kind of like curve the middle part of his fingers and whatnot. And you can use whatever kind of design you want. And I want the middle part of his knuckles to be kind of like curvy, just to kind of be interesting. Like I said, you pick your own style, but you can just use whatever style you want. This is just strictly for aesthetics purposes. And I want to darken in. Now some shadow in between the fingers, that's the darkest, and then the lower part of the knuckles will be in a lighter kind of shadow. And kind of just tweak it here from here on out. But also take a picture of your own hand in this same pose and try and draw your own hand. Now for the front of his body, we want to kind of just put in some light shading, and I want to put his D logo, DD, Daredevil's logo right here. And we don't see much of it because his hand is blocking it. Just go ahead and put in some light shading in the front. And you can have your light source coming from wherever you want. For my drawing, I'm going to have it just come from behind him. And we see here, if the light source is coming from behind him, then there's a cast shadow right here over his trapezius muscle, which connects his neck to his shoulder. And then we have some more deeper shadows down here. And then we're going to have a nice coarse shadow coming along the middle part of his arm. Once again, you'll have that highlight coming just below. So just darken in the middle section of his arm. I kind of went too dark, so I'll use my kneaded eraser and just lift some lead out. And that's the cool thing about a kneaded eraser. It lifts lead out instead of, it doesn't really damage your paper at all. Put some more shadow on his fingers here, leaving just a little highlight on each finger. And I want some more highlight on his hand. And now moving on to his right arm, we're going to go ahead and draw the same rounded shape to give the illusion that his arm is round, and it gives depth and dimension to your figure. And next we're going to put in the little tendons you see on the underside of your wrist. And then once again, we're going to put in that core shadow, just have it in the center of the arm, leaving the highlight whiteout parts on the outer rim, or the rim light as you call it. That's the proper term for it, rim light. And let's clean up some of the construction lines we have on his hands over here. Kind of darken them up a little bit more. And we're going to put the same diamond shaped knuckle design on his gloves on this hand. But we don't have to draw the full, diamond shape or the full diamonds themselves. Just indicate it on here. And put a light shadow on your drawing. And there is no super duper detailed way to do it. Just kind of flesh it out. But I forgot his thumb over here on his left hand. So let's go ahead and add that in there real quick. So you probably wouldn't see his thumb, but I want to see it over here. And just drop that in. Super easy. Next, we want to go ahead and start putting in and fleshing out his batons. So I'm going to use my straight edge here, my circle stencil. Anything that has a straight edge on it you can use. Ruler, stencil, whatever it is. Cardboard box, it doesn't matter, whatever has a straight edge. And want to go ahead and line those up, making sure that's right. Looks about good there. Erase some of the construction lines, clean it up. And then after that, real quick, I want to go ahead and kind of change up the design on his hand. I want to add in the tendons, the 3 tendons that are on the back of your hand. I think that looks a little bit better. Gives it a little bit more detail. And now going back to his baton, we want to go ahead and put in that core shadow once again. As you can see, that this is kind of like a general theme going throughout the drawing here, because once again it indicates that there's a light source coming from behind him. And we're going to do the same thing to his right baton. Add in, just clean it up with the ruler, and then go ahead and put in that shadow once more. And like I said, you can have your shadow coming from any direction, just as long as you have reference for it. Use your action figures or whatever. Now I want to put some detail on his batons. These aren't straight lines, they're curved lines to kind of indicate, that the baton is at an angle and it's not just straight on. And I'm going to use my whiteout Uniball gel pen and kind of put some highlights above his brow area, a little bit on his nose, and then on his cheek, on his horns up here. And put a highlight in each of his eyes. And you can go ahead and add in any kind of background. I'm going to draw in some debris here. In his mouth, I'm still not quite happy with it. Let me go ahead and adjust it a second time here. I don't want his frown to be that extreme. So we're going to go ahead and kind of draw like a bird shape. and make sure the upper lip is shaded. And then I'm going to put in the line to indicate his bottom lip, and then just putting a little bit more shading underneath his bottom lip. And kind of just tweak it and adjust it until it looks right. I think this looks a lot better than before. What do you guys think? Yeah, we're there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in his cast shadow again under his nose. And there you have it. That's Daredevil. Thanks for watching. And I want to give a quick shout out to Aditya, Tony, and Dave for sending me their Daredevil drawings. And if you want to see more of my sketches and you're interested in getting tips on how to break into animation and comics, then click the link and grab my sketchbook. It's now available for digital download.